Hi guys, we did chapter 6, purchasing. So what is purchasing? Purchasing or procurement is the process of securing the right product for a facility at the right time, and in a form that meets pre-established standards for quantity, quality, and price. And let me go back up here to the first slide for you guys so you can see what I'm talking about. Okay, so here we go. That's what I just said. In practice, purchasing is a complex and dynamic process. It is a sequence of needs of the food service operation, and exchange of ownership occurs between the buyer and the seller. That is usually goods in exchange for money. And right down there, I gave you a link to watch a video to help explain in an animated version what purchasing is. Okay, the basic flow of purchasing activities. Identify needs by planning new or reviewing existing menus for each business unit of the food service organization. Determine standards of quality for each food item and write specifications. You need to estimate quantities needed. Calculate desired inventory or stock levels for each item. Identify amounts to purchase by subtracting stock levels from desired quantities. Develop purchase orders, conduct market research on potential vendors, product availability, and you have to select and negotiate with the vendors you're working with. The market. Okay. The term market in the context of purchasing is actually a reflection of several concepts related to the products available for purchase and the processes involved in moving them from the original source of supply to the point of service, or from field to fork, as they like to call it. Sometimes this term is used in reference to commodities or the raw agricultural products used to produce food, such as like meats, grains, milk, the everyday things that you use. A market can also refer to a collection of activities that result in transfer of ownership of food from producer to consumer. This continuum of exchanges activities is called a market distribution. Here's more on market distribution. Food is distributed from sources to consumers through a series of market channels. A market channel is the food processing and distribution system, beginning with the grower of raw foods, like we talked about, like your milk, your meat, your grains, and ending at the final customer or point of consumption by the purchaser. The movement of products through the distribution system is guided through the work of intermediaries or middlemen. Middlemen act as a conduit between the manufacturers, distributors, and consumers. The two most common middlemen who influence the food segment are brokers and manufacturers' representatives. Okay, market channels and transfer of ownership. Here's an example I gave you guys. Agricultural production. Fields, they're such as fields, stockyards, orchards, and lakes. The processing is slaughterhouses and mills. Manufacturing is food processing and plants. Distribution is national, regional, and local. Food service is hospitals, schools, and prisons. So understanding the market. The market is dynamic and ever-changing, and the food buyer must be alert to trends and conditions that affect it. For example, the North American Free Trade Agreement, or the NAFTA, has had a significant influence on the availability and price of commodities. Exchange of information between seller and buyer is an important function of the market and is made possible through social media. We all know social media has a big influence on our lives. Market regulation. The U.S. Food and Inspection Programs, the two main ones that I'm going to talk to about, are the USDA and the FDA. I'm sure everybody's heard of those. Markets and the function of purchasing are regulated at the federal, state, and local levels. Government safety and inspection programs are used to evaluate foods for signs of disease, bacteria, chemicals, infestation, filth, or any other factor that may render the food item unfit for human consumption. All foods shipped in interstate commerce must meet the requirements of federal laws and regulations. Foods sold in intrastate commerce must meet state and local regulations that are at least equal to the federal requirements. The USDA is responsible for enforcing the Meat Inspection Act, and the FDA or the Food Drug Administration is responsible for enforcing of the federal food and drugs. And now it's Mecca's turn.
Hello, I'm here to talk about the buyer's aspect behind the purchasing. So firstly, the role of the buyer is they are a member of a professional administrative team, and they're held to high standards of work and performance and ethical behavior. Food and supply for food service organization is purchased by the buyer, and a buyer can either be such as a manager, purchasing department, or even a cooperative arrangement amongst other institutions. And the purchase depends solely upon the size of the ownership and the organization and the procurement policies. Communication is super crucial in the process. The buyer has a responsibility of ensuring delivery of the needed quantity of food and supplies at the appropriate timing and even certain quality of both food and supplies. Budget and financial policies also pertain to the purchasing process, and that's just solely due to budget and just limitations, really. How much do we need to put in to get back, when it comes to product and whatnot. That's usually how it works. Supply and demand, I suppose. Limitations simply comply to internal and external factors. Internal factors include things such as the customers, the menus, the recipe, who's available, and skills, equipment, storage facilities, quantity of foods needed. And external factors include the marketing system itself, food standards and quality, what products available, and purchasing methods behind that. The buyer simply represents the institution that they are associated with. So this ultimately means that they should acquire a good amount of knowledge and understanding of legal requirements, and especially since purchasing comes along with orders and contracts with vendors. So yes. What are we doing here? Okay. So and with speaking of vendors, negotiation plays a part into this whole setup. So purchasing the product, when being a buyer, you shouldn't just mindlessly sign a document and be like, oh, okay, yeah, just give me that. Yeah, I'll just take it, whatever. You need to be very aware of how much you're getting, what you're getting, the quality of what you're getting, and things of that nature. And the buyer must be diligent into seeing these things, because you want the highest quality product when being a part of one services. No one wants to eat rotten nasty chicken or something like that. I mean, I can't eat it because I'm vegan, but still, no one wants to eat rotten chicken. You want to have nice tender chicken. So that's what they're out to get. That's what the buyer wants. They want the best chicken on the market, the freshest chicken on the market, because that just solely means that the customers are happy, and everyone likes a happy customer. Okay, and the start of a successful negotiation, that firstly begins with the knowledge and information in regards to what products needed, and the buyer should work closely with production and service staff to ensure that operational needs and limitations are being taken into consideration. And an example of this is how much storage space is available for products in all form. And as you can see, I have a picture right here that just solely represents that, because just imagine that you ordered too much of spam and you don't have any more room for it. What are you going to do with that extra product? You just wasted money on product. So that's why you need to be knowledgeable as to what needs to be ordered again, and like what's out and what's super in. So that's very important. And there's also ethics behind purchasing, which I did not even think that was even a thing, but there definitely is some science behind this. So when you're a buyer, you want to think of them as like an agent for the institution. So they're being trusted with all the decision making when it comes to concerning quality, prices, and the amount of the purchase. And all these factors must not be compromised, money and or the position. So what that basically means is you don't want to be bribed when you're buying, because vendors, they want to do that in exchange for a sale, and this is known as collusion. It's a secret arrangement of inducements to influence the buyer's decision. So when you're a buyer, you're going to be faced with lots of vulnerable moments when it comes to working, which you want to be aware that's going to happen, but you got to surpass that. And when I say surpass that, that means don't accept a free gift, don't accept a free lunch, don't even get a free sample. Just like get what you got to get and get out, because it's just not a pretty setting, I suppose, when you get back and the facility's like, where is such and such? We needed this. It blows up out of proportion. So I can understand why it's really important to be a buyer. That's the buyer's aspect. And the vendor, okay, I'll just talk about that later. So there's structure behind purchasing, actually. So you have two primary types. You got centralized, which is where there isn't one specific person within every unit responsible for the purchases. So they're not interviewing sales representatives, they're not negotiating contracts and placing orders. Everyone is, not everyone, I guess. So a purchasing department rather than a department manager is responsible for making the orders. That's what I meant to say. So things like facilities such as like universities, schools, and multiple unit restaurants and hospitals do things as such. Group and cooperative, that's where the buyer is selected by the members and maintains an office, and they must commit time and majority of the purchase to the group efforts. So everyone has to work together and compromise in order to get one sole decision upon that. So with purchasing, the vendor's aspect of that, the vendor is simply just someone, or not someone, it's a supplier who supplies product for the organization. And this is one of the most significant decisions that needs to be made in the purchasing program. The quality of what the vendor has strongly dictates the management's choices as to what vendors they want. No one wants to be selling like Rotten Tomatoes or anything. Like, who would want to be buying Rotten Tomatoes from someone? It's not appetizing, in my opinion. And also the location is crucial as well, because you don't if you're running out of supplies, you want to make sure that you have your vendor